Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the OpenText Live webinar series. My name is Gretchen Wurgis, and I am the Senior Partner Training Manager for our OpenText Global Partner Program. And if you have any questions at all about OpenText, product related, or if you have a question about the partner program, if you have a suggestion that you'd like to see, a topic that you'd like to see for a future webinar, or you just have any questions related to this webinar once it's concluded, you can contact us at any time at partners@opentext.com. This particular webinar series is a series where we have our valuable solutions extensions partners present some great content and exciting solutions to our customers. So we're excited today to have Answer Modules with us. And before I turn it over to them, I just wanted to remind everyone that we do record every webinar in the series, and they'll be posted on the historical tab of the opentext.com/events page. So you'll be able to refer back to that and share it with your colleagues as you need. If you have a question at any time during the presentation, we ask that you put that either into the Q&A or into the chat panels. You can access those at the bottom of your screen or the right-hand corner sometimes, depending on what version you are working with of WebEx. All right, and with that, I would like to turn it over to our presenter for the day, our first presenter, Paolo Ramoldi.
All right, thanks for that, Gretchen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Obviously, thanks for your time. Glad that you could make it. And Gretchen, thanks for letting us organize this session. So our objective for today is to give a panorama, give an overview of one of our new solutions, one of our new modules that's called Smart Pages, and also introduce or showcase the way that our solutions can go ahead and enhance the workflow framework within CSP and Extended ECM. So just a quick intro. I'm Paulo. I take care of the sales and also the channel, the alliances aspects here at Answer Modules. I'll be running the intro at the beginning, and then I'll hand things off to Fabio, who will go into a little bit more of the technical aspects and also show a live demo. Now, before we begin, I have to leave this disclaimer slide on just for a few seconds. I believe that's sufficient, so let's actually dive in. So again, we split the agenda essentially into 5 key areas. One, I'm going to introduce what our core solution is, and that's Module Suite. The reason I'm going to discuss our core solution is because both Smart Pages and the workflow enhancements, they're part of that. So Smart Pages is it's a new module that's part of that, and workflow enhancements is obviously a feature of the Module Suite. Then I'll give a high-level overview of what Smart Pages is, how it's utilized. Then we'll be going into the workflow enhancements, essentially I'll be explaining from a high-level overview of how we enhance workflows. And then I'll hand things off to Fabio for, say, running through some examples, and then go into the actual live demo. At the end, we'll leave time for Q&A. So looking forward to those. So first and foremost, what is the Module Suite? So we define it as the smartest way of creating, delivering, managing, administrating tailored business applications on top of CSP and Extended ECM. So you have to think of it as a rapid application framework. Again, really able to create exactly what your business needs on top of the CSP and Extended ECM platform. There's 3 distinguishing characteristics to it. First is that it's a fully integrated add-on module. I always like to stress this aspect. What we mean by this is that it's an add-on module that you install very easily on top of CSP and Extended ECM, and it lives and breathes within the platform. So there's no additional infrastructure needed. Essentially has a zero footprint within your landscape. It's used by customers to build solutions, tailored solutions, but also build and modify solutions as their business evolves. So in other words, being able to create solutions and applications utilizing an agile methodology. And third aspect, it's that it's actually a collection, or the Module Suite is a collection of different tools. And each and all these tools, what they do is they really take the standard functionality and build on top of it. So really extending and enhancing what can be done with the CSP and Extended ECM platform. Now there's 3 main tools within Module Suite. We have Beautiful Web Forms. This is an advanced form framework, so allows to create very powerful dynamic forms, etc. And it comes with a what you see is what you get visual form builder. Then we have Content Script, and this is a name that you'll be hearing later on throughout the presentation. And it's the first and only genuine scripting engine for CSP and Extended ECM. And now we've also introduced Smart Pages. And I shall be explaining that a little bit later on. So these are 3 main components: Beautiful Web Forms, Smart Pages, and Content Script. So remember, Content Script is the scripting engine. Just want to cite this for the later slides. So what can be done with the Module Suite? Well, I just mentioned that it's about building tailored applications, tailored solutions. Obviously, an application or solution can have different aspects to it. What you see on the screen, these are the 6 primary use cases, or better yet, the 6 most common use cases that we see the Module Suite being leveraged for. So first and foremost, if you've already heard about us, if you know our technology, if you've ever seen some of our examples, you'll see that forms play a very, very big part of our solutions. And this is because what we can do is we can go ahead and create, again, very powerful, very dynamic forms for pretty much any scenario. So we're even talking about scenarios that require a mobile usage or even an offline usage. The Module Suite has always also been about being able to create very tailored and very simplified UIs, and that's more obviously more than true today thanks to the Smart Page edition as well. So we're talking about both classic and Smart UI. One of the key aspects, which is also a key aspect for today, is our ability to enhance workflows. One thing I like to point out right away is that we're extending the capabilities of the standard workflow engine. So we're not adding a new workflow engine. What we're doing is we're taking what's already there and building on top of it, extending it, enhancing it. Next up is smart automation, and this kind of touches on all the other points as well. So with the Module Suite, we're also able to pretty much automate any sort of process, be it something very click intensive or something much more high value. The Module Suite is also utilized to facilitate integrations with external systems. So these could be third-party platforms such as DocuSign. These could be internal homegrown systems. These could be legacy systems and whatnot. And the Module Suite, it's also all about taking a low-coding approach, also an agile approach to creating applications and solutions on top of CSP and Extended ECM. So again, I just want to give you a quick panorama of what the primary use cases are for the Module Suite, for the full suite, but for today we'll be focusing on these 4 key aspects. So let's go straight into Smart Pages. Again, Smart Pages is a new addition to the Module Suite, so it's part of the Module Suite from version 2.6 onwards. And we define it as the first solution as generally dedicated to crafting the UIs for your enterprise applications on top of CSP and Extended ECM. And we can define it in 5 points. First and foremost is that just like the Module Suite, it's a fully integrated solution. So it's fully integrated add-on module for CSP and Extended ECM. And it's also been created and designed with the Smart View in mind from the get-go. Another aspect that's just like the Module Suite is the fact that it's low coding. So it's a collection, again, it's another collection of high productivity, low coding tools. So this makes it extremely easy to learn, very quick to learn, and very quick to use as well. Now it's based on a reusable component-oriented architecture. So this means that creating a UI is really just a matter of assembling some ready-to-use building blocks. So just think of Legos, essentially. This library of building blocks, it's not, let's say, static. It grows over time, so it grows with our releases. But customers can also extend that library as well, so they have the components that are very specific to their individual needs as well. Now, Smart Pages, just like the rest of the suite, again, it's about agile development. So you can go ahead and quickly prototype a UI. You can sit down with the line of business, immediately verify the results, and if needed, make those modifications on the fly without needing to restart, etc. And also, obviously, being able to make changes as the business evolves down the line. And last but not least, Smart Pages, we define it also as a business-friendly solution. Now, this is more of a two-pointer. So the fact is that being low coding, it's also accessible and can also be utilized by business users to essentially create and manage their own UIs. But it's also bringing significant value to the line of business. And this is thanks to the fact that with Smart Pages, we can go ahead and overall enhance the end user experience. And obviously this has different ramifications that could go from adoption, satisfaction, etc. So why use Smart Pages? What can I do with it? Essentially, what can my end users do with these UIs that I create with Smart Pages? So besides presenting data, a UI that's built with Smart Pages can also be utilized to collect and or manipulate information. So I'm not just presenting something, I'm actually allowing them to use that interface to collect and manipulate data. So kind of think of it as an interface can be a one-stop shop as well. With a UI crafted with Smart Pages, we can go ahead and, the end users can go ahead and interact with CSP and extended DCM's standard functionality, or they could also go ahead and interact with that application's specific business logic. So specific features related to that single application. And we can also go ahead and utilize these UIs to really contextualize the information that's being shown to the end users. So we could present to end users with information that is only relevant to what they're doing at that specific moment. That is only the information that's very significant to them at that time, and essentially is contextualized to that specific moment, that specific task at hand. So this was a quick recap of, quick intro of the Smart Pages. We'll be seeing this, let's say, in action later on during Fabio's live demo. So let me just switch topics and let's go ahead and discuss workflows. So how do we enhance workflows? Again, I always like to stress the fact that we are enhancing the standard workflow engine. So we're not adding our own workflow engine. What we're doing is we're enhancing what's already there. And there's 4 ways that we do this. One is, again, we're using forms as primary interfaces, but a little bit more than that. So we can go ahead and use dynamic forms in which the data that's presented to the user is essentially, again, touching upon the point from the previous slide, it's contextualized to that specific workflow, that specific workflow status, and that specific user. So again, being able to dynamically show data on so that it's contextualized at that moment. With our forms, we can also go ahead and really automatize the process as well. So the way that we can add automation to a form is by, and this is probably a summary of it, is essentially by being able to inject your specific business logic, your specific business rules within the form itself. So the form fields, they follow how your specific business rules dictate that they should be followed. Then the second way that we enhance workflows is by implementing automation, and this is thanks to a content script step. So again, like I mentioned before, content script is our scripting engine for CSPX and DCM, and we can go ahead and use this as a step within a workflow. So essentially, thanks to content scripts, over 5,000 APIs, and it keeps on growing, we're pretty much able to automate anything, regardless of how complex that thing, in quotes, is. Now, with the content scripts and content script steps, we can also go ahead and easily, and I really stress the fact, easily implement very complex routing mechanisms for a workflow with pretty much without any hassle. So the third point on how we enhance workflows is, and this is actually something new with our latest release, and we've called it a Process Builder API. So this brand new API drastically reduces the effort needed to create complex maps or processes as well. So essentially, it provides the workflow designer with much more flexibility in how workflows are designed, and also the actual flow of activities can be dictated by the data itself. So to sum it up, it's so once a workflow has been designed, it doesn't need to be set in stone. It can dynamically change, dynamically grow as the process needs as well. And last but not least, this is actually an idea that came from the community, so big thanks to Apu. And this is the possibility of executing content scripts as event scripts. And this new paradigm, it opens up a very wide range of possibilities when it comes to workflows. One of the possibilities is that we can now define a specific set of event scripts. We can define that for one specific workflow. So they're not defined globally. They can be defined for one specific workflow. The other aspect is that by using content scripts as event scripts, there's no need for OScript development, and also there's no need for services restart as well. So with that concludes my quick intro. Now I'd like to pass things on to Fabio, and he'll be conducting a walkthrough of how our workflow enhancements can impact real-world scenarios.
Thank you very much, Paolo. I'll just start sharing my screen so that we can move forward. Okay. There are two things that we are focusing on mainly today. One is the latest topic that we have been hearing from Paolo related to the workflow capabilities that we have extended in the very latest releases of Modal Suite, and the new Smart Pages technology. So the new Smart Pages model, which in our opinion gives you a very new and effective way of extending what your CSP, what your Extended DCM platform can do. So first thing I'll show you is, since we were discussing workflows a moment ago, I will try to put that all the concepts that we've discussed into a practical example based on a real-world scenario. So my objective here will be to show you how we can use the new capabilities in order to really simplify what the representation, how to put in practice a set of even complex requirements in using the content server workflows engine and accomplishing a lot with a fraction of the effort that would be normally required. So on screen right now you're seeing a workflow. It's not a huge workflow, but it has a few complex requirements to it. The representation that you see on the right of the screen is a much simpler representation that, as a matter of fact, has even more features and a lot more automations than the original version. So we are also reducing the amount of work that users had to do manually to perform some tasks that we weren't able to automate without using ContentScript advanced tools. So what I will show you is for every single, I'll split this up in a couple different phases so that the requirements are a little bit clearer. And for every phase of the process, I will discuss a few of the requirements, the most complex requirements that we had there, and the way these requirements can be addressed with the tools that we are providing. So this workflow has, let's say, 4 phases. One is related to the initial setup of the workflow. So initializing data, initializing workspaces, generating a few documents, notifying people, that sort of operations. Then there is an initial approval phase, which confirms the activity to be performed. A third phase that defines a set of tasks that will have to be performed. And the final phase is around finalization of the data, sharing the data with remote systems, and validating the data that has been collected through the workflow. In the very first phase, so setting up the workflow process, we had a few requirements that could seem simple but can require a little bit of work. For example, sending out personalized emails to each and every person that will be involved in the workflow with different information based on the type of user could be a hard task. Well, another requirement which is typical is updating the information, so the workflow title. This workflow specifically is controlling documents and generating documents that will be stored in a connected workspace object, which is a very common paradigm in the new extended ECM paradigms. So as part of the initiating the workflow, we're also creating a connected workspace, and we are passing information to that connected workspace related to the workflow that has been started. The workflow is being started through a form by a user, so information that is collected through the initial form is used throughout all of these steps. As part of the creation, we're also bootstrapping a set of documents. In this case, I'll have a few Word documents, Excel documents, and these documents are not just templates. They are templates in which we must put dynamic information coming from the current workflow. So they were collected probably by the form by the user and will have to be put in there. Once the documents are created in the workspace, we want to be able to access them from the workflow. So we need shortcuts in the workflow attachments folder, which we can use to access the document. And most important, we need an audit trail. So there will be a PDF document that will be created by the system, and information will be appended to this document as the process moves forward. So with our original implementation, without leveraging model suite capability, we were able to meet a few of the requirements. So some are a little bit tougher. The personalized emails require some very deep advanced customization. Generating the documents was something that was tough. So a subset of the requirement was met by using a sequence of basic steps that you can see on screen. With Modal Suite, using the new approach, so using event scripts backed by a content script object, we were able to define an event that is triggered in the moment the workflow is initiated, and as a single automated script, it can first of all have access to all the information that is passed to the workflow at the beginning, and use ContentScript APIs to perform all of these tasks. So each and every one of these tasks can be performed by ContentScript. By using an event script, we are able to plug that ContentScript in a specific moment of the workflow execution to be able to perform those operations. Okay, so in ContentScript we have, for example, APIs to create and modify Office documents, such as the Word and Excel documents that we need in this example. We have the capability of controlling the creation of objects in the system, so the creation of connected workspaces, the creation of PDF documents, and including the audit of the workflow. Those are all tasks that can be quite easily achieved with a script. So the very first part, the setup of the workflow, could be simplified with a simple automated job. The next part is in the second part, which is related to user approval. The requirement was more focused on defining who the users are that will have to approve the documents that have been generated in the workflow. So review the documents and approve the documents in different levels of approval. To accomplish this task, we were able to do this with, let's say, a branched cascading set of duplicated steps, okay? Steps associated to the different users, but there were a few tasks that are kind of complex to achieve, especially in cases in which you get a change request for the workflow. So that could be something like, okay, let's add a new approver, or let's make the third approver not mandatory. So the workflow has to be able to adapt to the different, as Paulo was saying, the data that is processed in the workflow itself. In addition to that, we had a few of the users that had to be in charge of the workflows had to be defined dynamically. So, for example, the editor that will be in charge of reviewing the document has to be identified through a remote web service, which will provide the information that is not available in the workflow itself. So in order to implement these requirements with ContentScript, once again using event scripts, we were able to have, first of all, an event script associated to each and every, to the event associated to the step becoming ready. And in this case, we can grab the information around the current status of the workflow and notify the user with a customized message. And also, it's possible with this kind of step, with the same ContentScript, associated to the phase where the performer is assigned to determine the assignee dynamically. So in this case, we're using a SOAP web service, but the logic there could be whatever. So in this case, using the ContentScript, you can be able to even query a remote service, grab the ID of the user, map it against a local content server user, and make and assign the step dynamically. And as you can see, the final layout of the workflow map is very clean. So this additional information, this additional operations don't really require extra steps in the map. They can just be associated to the existing step, which end up representing the real job that has to be performed in that phase, and not the boilerplate operations that have to be performed to activate that step. Same approach can be used through ContentScript also to skip steps altogether. So in this case, for example, the third reviewer, which is not mandatory, could be automatically sent on without even activating it for the user by checking the information in the workflow data with a content script and simply sending on the step without sending it to the user. Okay, so we actually get more than the standard functionality with an easier approach. The third part of the workflow was a bit more tricky. In this case, what we had was a set of activities that have to be performed to complete the job, to complete this process, with the problem that these activities are not always executed in the same order, and certain activities will have to be executed before than other activities because the output of the activity will be feeding the one after that. And since the order can be any order, what we ended up doing in the original map was to expand the full set of possibilities. So what you see in the top the top part of the screen is the different activities in different possible orders. And this kind of scenario is extremely tricky because it kind of explodes with the number of steps that we're looking to. So if in case we had to add a fourth activity, then it would be a real mess. The map would really explode, and you could hit the limit in size of the workflow map. So in this case, what we ended up doing was using our new capability, which Paul introduced, which is the process builder API within ContentScript that can be used to define at runtime a workflow map, so to build a workflow map that can be used as sub-workflow for these cases. So the default cases can be defined at the beginning, and whatever case can come up or new cases in case of new activities can be generated on the fly by generating a brand new map and putting together whatever is required for that map to run. Okay, so this is one possible way of using the Process Builder API. So in the context of a running workflow, I can use the Process Builder API to dynamically build portions of the workflow map, so sub-workflows within that map. And this is kind of unique in this context. We'll see later on a couple more possible ways of using the Process Builder API, which I think are also very interesting. But for the moment, this is what we're doing right here. And last phase, and I promise I'm done with slides after this, is sharing data with remote system as part of the finalization of the workflow. So as part of the workflow, we have seen that we were generating files. One of the files that was generated was an Excel file in which we were pushing information, and the Excel file contains complex rules that are used to calculate an outcome. And this outcome was to be used to validate the result of the execution of the workflow. So in this case, against a remote system, which was Salesforce. So in order to do this operations, you need something that is capable, first of all, of accessing information within a structured document, such as an Excel document. And this is something that ContentScript does very easily with our Office manipulation APIs. You can use them to create Excel spreadsheets, as we mentioned at the beginning, but you also can use them, obviously, to read data from the spreadsheet. And this is what we're doing in this case. And once we grab that information using our integration capabilities, we are able to push that information and execute a web service call to validate against a leading application, which in this case is Salesforce. So even the only alternative that was available in this case was for a user to manually open the spreadsheet, check the information there, and start the validation process manually. This whole process was automated with a couple automated steps, with a couple content script steps. So overall, the result of this whole exercise was that the whole workflow was reduced to a representation that includes the steps that really represent actual activities, and without having a lot of extra steps that are not really interesting in terms of defining the process, but are automations that you have to implement because the technology requires it. And so maintainability is better, and the final result is even more powerful in terms of what you can actually do than the original one. So that said, I will probably move to a live environment. Let's see if I'm still online here, because I briefly mentioned the possibility of using the content script APIs to dynamically generate workflow maps. Now, this opens up a lot of interesting scenarios. One possible scenario is to leverage different representations of structured processes and translate them into an executable workflow inside Content Server. So the example that I'm going to show you will use, let me download a template here. So grab this template. And I will use BPMN2 editor to define a process, in this case, so using standard terminology and representations. In this case, what I'm doing is I have partially defined process. Let's, for example, come here and add another swim lane, so another role. Let's call it operations, and I'll come in here and add a brand new task. Do something, okay. I'll grab this, so I can use the functionality in this standardized editor to create a BPMN representation of my process. Then this could be the job of a business user that is not aware of functionalities in the content server workflow engine, for example. Once I'm done here, I can provide this representation to my content server administrators, or I can do it myself. So I can take this, upload it to content server. Now in this case, there is a content script backed application that is grabbing intercepting the type of file that is being dropped here, and is generating on the fly, using the Process Builder API, a workflow map within Content Server that has been configured using the configuration provided in the schema. Okay, and obviously, in Content Server workflows, we don't have the concept of swim lanes, which were used here to define groups responsible for the different operations. And so what I can do here is I can check that actually the tasks that have been created in here are actually assigned to a group inside Content Server that is responsible for the operation as defined. So the takeaway, the thing that I wanted to pass here is that the Process Builder API can be used in many interesting ways. It can be used to really open up the content server workflow engine to different ways of using it, different possibilities in terms of defining workflows starting from other representations. In this case, I used the standard BPMN representation, but this could be, for example, an Excel spreadsheet in which I have a set of tasks that have to be executed. We have the flexibility of accessing that information and use it and transfer that knowledge into Content Server. As a matter of fact, you can actually have another example in here which shows you how you can actually generate a whole application, including workflows, including forms, by completely scripting it using a content script. So what you're seeing on screen is a content script object, and upon execution of this script, it's thinking. And after the execution of the script, what will happen is that the script will create all the objects that are required by the application and the workflow. So it created forms, it actually created a workflow map, okay? It created content scripts with actions that have to be performed as part of the workflow. So I can really code complete applications using a programmatic approach. Okay. So this was, I don't want to take more time on this. I will, since we mentioned that the two big areas here were workflows, which we are quite excited about, and the Smart Pages technology, I will take a few moments to show you something around the Smart Pages. So as Paulo mentioned, Smart Pages is our way of extending the possibility for users to implement custom interfaces, both within the Smart UI, but also standalone user interfaces that can be used to interact with applications in Content Server. What you will be able to do within Content Server is create new objects that are Smart UI objects. These objects can be accessed and can be modified directly within Content Server through a visual editor. If you're familiar with our beautiful web forms technology, you'll see a lot of similarities between the two technologies, and this is obviously a plus for us. So you can get the best from the two worlds and have a faster learning process. The idea here is that you can grab objects and pre-existing widgets, and you can build your pages by adding components, configuring them, configure the behavior of the actions, and create your own pages that can be used as part of the Content Server Smart UI. So, for example, this object that I was showing is part of an application that is a wrapper around a ticket management process. In this interface, what you're seeing this is a standard Content Server perspective. So it's a set of widgets that can be added and configured to a Content Server perspective. These widgets are backed by Smart Pages. In this case, well, actually, not all of them are Smart Pages. As part of the Smart Pages technology, we also have libraries of standalone pre-configured widgets that you can also use. Like in this case, on the left side of the screen, this is a standard tree widget available with our Smart Pages extension, while the central object is actually a page that you can create. Now in this process, the idea is being able to handle support ticket workflows. So every single object that you see on the left is a task associated to a workflow, and by simply clicking on these, you can access the actual workflow, including the attachment folder of the workflow, a form that is part of the workflow step, and additional information such as comment, audit, and more. So the idea here is, and this is the core concept around what Paolo meant when he was talking about rapidly developing application on content server. What we provide is the possibility of streamlining the interfaces that you can create around your processes. So both, building complex processes, but also giving the users a better user experience and showing all the information they need where they need it. So in this case, a set of different workflows in different stages. So these are actual, the folders that you see up here are actually different stages of the workflows. For each one of them, I can see the tasks that are assigned to myself. I can access them directly, and I can take action on the single steps. Okay. We have maybe just a couple more minutes before I would like to leave some time for Q&A. So I'll just show you very quickly another application just to show you other features that are very interesting. So the possibility of, for example, embedding forms, so adding interactive capabilities to the Smart UI, but in the context of the process. So this application that you're seeing right now is related to the creation of contracts, basically. So I can access the drafts area where I will be able to create new contracts. I can open from here, I can access a form that I will be able to use to create a new contract. Okay, so this is actually a form created with our beautiful web forms technology, which now fully supports Smart UI. So you can actually trigger forms from your Smart UI components and have forms that don't require to move to a completely separate interface, but can be used directly in the context of a Smart UI perspective. So in this case, what I will do is I will just pre-populate some information from for demo purposes. This form is I'll show you. I can add some information here. I'm creating a document. So what I will do is I will put some data in here. This is a rich text editor, so I can do stuff like this, blah blah blah. And this the final purpose of this is to create a contract that describes my engagement. So I can select what are the templates and what portions of the document I will create. And when I click create, the information that I collected with this form will actually be used under the hood to bootstrap a brand new Word document, which will be added to this location on Content Server itself. So in this case, I'll just download the document to show you the final result, and the information that I collected there, the dynamic information, has been added, and the information that I defined was used to actually create the basics of this document. Okay. So I think we are on top of the hour. I would really like to leave some time there for Q&A. So I'll pass the word back to Paolo and Gretchen to wrap up.
All right, great. Just to remind everyone, if you do have a question, go ahead and put it into either the Q&A or the chat panels, and we'll be happy to ask those of our presenters for the day. And while we're waiting, I'll also remind you to be sure to check out that opentext.com/events page, where you'll be able to see not only the recording for this webinar within the next 24 hours. It should be, or sorry, 48 hours. It should be posted for you there. But you'll also be able to see what webinars are coming up and what other content you'd like to see offered. All right. I'm not seeing any questions. Paolo, I don't know if you wanted to.
No, from my side, don't have any more, say, information to provide. I don't know if we want to wait maybe a minute or two. Any last minute questions at the end. The only thing I would like to add is, let me just share my desktop. 1 second. I do have a question if you want to take that before you go on. Could you read out the question, because I'm using double monitor, so I can't.
Yeah, it says, it looks like that last contract SOW, you were able to grab paragraphs to create a document inside a template set up for SOP. Can you manage the paragraphs and revision?
Fabio, you want to take that?
Yep. So, yeah, the functionality there was actually using. I didn't really show that part, but inside, as part of the application, we had a repository of Word documents actually that were templates of portions of the final document. So you could grab pieces from those documents and use them to create a final version of the contract. Now, once the final document is created, so the single pieces of the document can be obviously handled separately, so the original templates. Then at some point, the final document is generated, at least in this scenario. So the document is revised as one single object. So not the single paragraphs are not managed separately. Obviously, the process could be handled in a different way. So you could handle the separate paragraphs during the process and then merge them at the very end. So you could have a separate life cycle for the single portions. And not sure if that answers your question.
Okay, I have another question. What are the benefits of content scripts over the web report?
Well, content script has been is based on a it's based on a different approach. So content script is a full-fledged programming language. So it has all advantages of a real, complex programming language. So the things that you can easily do with content script are there's things that you would actually require to code and to program can come a lot easier with content script. Another thing is that content script has a huge set of APIs. In my opinion, that's the real value of it. So content script ships with office management APIs. We have PDF manipulation APIs. We have integrations with PDF with SAP. We have integrations with the possibility of calling and consuming web services, of implementing web services and REST endpoints inside content server. There is really a huge range of things that you can do with content script, and it's the number of things that you can do is growing over time. So we're building on top of that to provide more and more functionality and more things to do. And one of the nice things, so compared to, for example, to all script programming, content script, well, this is something that's quite similar to web reports actually, but you have a very powerful tool that doesn't require very low-level manipulation on the system. So you don't have to compile your application and deploy it on the system, deploy a model, and restart your system, whatever. You can do that as a developer inside Content Server itself.
Fabio, if I may add on to that, I'm not sure if you touched on this, is another aspect of that differentiates Content Script is the fact that it's not based on a proprietary language. So what we're seeing is that the majority of technical users, developers, they can very quickly learn to utilize our solution without having to go out and learn a new proprietary language.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
we have another question.
Exactly. Thanks, Paul.
Do you have a library of samples, sample use cases, etc.? Can we access that content?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there is resources available both online. So there's a developer portal in which you can find information of how things can be done with Model Suite. And as part of the documentation, there is a tool that you can set up on your development system, and that will import. So it will allow you to browse existing examples and set them up on your system. So you'll find the references on that on our developer.answermodels.com portal. And we'll probably add that information on the presentation, I think. So perhaps it can be accessed later on. But yes, you can contact our support to get all the information around that. So obviously, running the examples inside Content Server requires Model Suite to be installed on the system. So if you can do that, you can absolutely contact our support to get all you need to set up the example package.
All right, great. That's all the questions that I see in the chat at this time.
Then, obviously, what you're seeing on the screen, those are my direct contacts. If there's any questions or requests for, say, additional explanation, material, etc., feel free to contact me, drop me an email, call me at any time. As you can see on the screen, we will be attending both Enterprise World events as sponsors. So in Prague in, I guess, a few weeks from now. So if you'll be there, it'll be good to chance to connect, and later on in Vegas as well. Look out, take a glance at, or better yet, follow us on LinkedIn. We use that, and Twitter. We use that to communicate our updates, events, etc., upcoming webinars. So just to stay in the loop on what's up at Answer Modules.
Great. Thank you so much to Paula and to Fabio for your presentations today. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance. If you do have a question that you think of after the fact, you can always contact. You have Paolo's information there. You can also contact us at partners@opentext.com. All right. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.